Today I'll be going over chapters 26 through 40 of Christine Brown Woolley's book, Sister Wife. Chapter 26. Christine says at the advice of their therapist, the family decided to have a commitment ceremony. It was a way to, quote, celebrate how far we had come, to acknowledge what we had learned in counseling, and to recommit to each other at a point when things seemed pretty precarious. The wives drove down to San Francisco to go dress shopping for the ceremony, while Cody stayed home to take care of the kids. Christine says the trip to San Francisco was a fun bonding experience, but they learned, as is shown on the show, that the wives felt uncomfortable talking to Cody on the phone in front of other wives. Meanwhile, the crew filmed Cody at home being completely clueless about how to feed and care for his 17 kids. Cody burned the steaks on the grill. She says at that point the kids took care of each other and themselves. Before Christine had left for San Francisco, Truly hadn't been feeling well, so she took her to urgent care. The doctor said Truly probably had the flu and then sent her home. While Christine was in San Francisco, Aspen called her and said, Truly's sick, like really sick, and I don't know what to do. Christine called Cody and he said, the girls are there, they can take care of it. Christine told him, Cody, I really need you to help with Truly. Cody said, I have a lot to take care of at Robin's house. I'll see what I can do. When she got home, Truly was still sick and had wanted to sleep with McKelty. Christine went in the room to check on her, and that's when she saw Truly's eyes were crossing. She took Truly back to urgent care where the doctor said she needs glasses. So Christine called her doctor, who cleared his calendar and told her to bring Truly in immediately. The doctor examined Truly, who was swollen and couldn't breathe right and could hardly keep her eyes open. The doctor told Christine, take her to the ER immediately. She's in kidney failure. On the way to the ER, Christine called Cody, who met them there. Truly's tests were so bad that at first, the staff thought that the machines were broken. Her numbers were like that of an 80-year-old woman on dialysis. Truly was admitted to the hospital, and Christine stayed with her. Cody would come see her for a couple of hours during the day. Truly wasn't improving, so she was put on dialysis. Christine writes, she was so skinny but also puffy, and she couldn't pee. Her bladder wasn't working, and her kidneys weren't working. They kept drawing blood to do more tests. And at the time, we had no insurance because we were in the middle of getting new insurance. So they kept coming to the door of Truly's room to say, we need more money. Christine told them, look, my daughter's here. I don't have money for you. I can't help you. Can I just be with her, please? They'd go away, but then they'd come back, so she'd offer it more money. When it was all said and done, Christine would owe more than $200,000. Christine had a decision to make when it came to Truly's dialysis. Keep her in the hospital for the dialysis or take her home and hook her up to machines there. They decided to bring Truly home so she would be in a familiar environment and surrounded by people who loved her. In order to insert the catheter for the dialysis machine, Truly would need to have surgery on her abdomen. At the hospital, Christine was waiting for staff to take Truly into the operating room when the surgeon came in. The surgeon asked, how old is she? Christine said, she's 3. The surgeon said, why are you doing the surgery? Christine was stunned, and she said, we went through hours discussing this with the doctors, and they said this was the best option. The surgeon said, there's a huge risk of infection. This wasn't the pep talk Christine needed at the time. Christine told her, I don't have any answers for you. I don't know what to do. The surgeon looked at Truly's numbers and said in a cold tone, oh, well, I guess this is the best surgery. Truly was in surgery for a couple of hours, and when she came out of it, she was puffy and looked terrible. Christine was angry at the surgeon and talked to one of the nurses. The nurse said, if my kids were going through anything, I would request her. She's honestly the best here. The surgery went well. Christine stayed the night at the hospital with Truly, and the next day the surgeon came into the room and apologized. The surgeon said, I understand I really hurt your feelings yesterday. Not recognizing her because so many doctors had been coming in and out, Christine said, oh, you're the surgeon. She said, yeah, I'm really sorry. I get into surgeon mode. And it was just hard on me that she was so little. I could do it, but it was scary to me too. That's an odd thing to hear from a surgeon, but I guess it's honest. Truly spent the next several days on dialysis in the hospital because she couldn't get discharged until she could urinate. Cody told Christine to draw a picture of Truly in the hospital with tubes in and out of her, and then draw a picture of a healthy Truly at Disneyland. Truly peed that night. After 10 days in the hospital, Truly was discharged. The doctor said she'd heal faster at home and wouldn't need dialysis anymore. Truly would have 4 follow-up visits before the doctor told Christine, I don't think I need to see you again. If she gets sick again, let me know, but I think you're done. Truly got sick twice that year, but each time she recovered well. On Christmas Day, Truly vomited, and Cody told Christine Truly would be fine. But Christine didn't want to take any chances, so she took Truly to Christine's bed, and that's where they spent Christmas, snuggling. They still don't know what caused Truly's illness, other than that she got the flu, she was dehydrated, and she lived in Las Vegas. Christine says, as per usual, Cody and the wives discussed the illness on the set. Referring to the time Aspen called Christine in a panic, Christine said to Cody, I needed your help. Cody told her he'd been busy doing laundry at Robin's house. Christine told him, you were going to let our daughter die because you were doing laundry for Robin. Christine writes, I felt like we were last on his list. Cody got so mad that he asked the crew to turn off the cameras because he knew just how bad it sounded. He hadn't been there when Truly, and I needed him desperately. We're not filming this, he said. I confided in Robin about it later. Christine told Robin, if Truly had died, I would have left Cody because she didn't matter to him, because he was more focused on doing laundry at your house than helping our daughter. Christine writes, Robin was beside herself. She was horrified at the idea of me leaving over the surgery. Breaking up over the death of a child doesn't make logical sense, but I think she understood that in that situation it did, because Cody wasn't there for Truly. He wasn't there for me, and he wasn't there for his oldest daughters, who he left to deal with a scary situation. Robin told Cody what Christine said, and Cody got mad at Christine for talking to Robin about it. So he got mad at Christine instead of apologizing for not being there when they needed him. Christine says that was the last time she opened up to Robin. She says, I felt she betrayed my trust by telling Cody something I had said in confidence. They took Truly on the Disney trip, where she spent a lot of time talking with Rapunzel and Flynn Rider. Truly asked Flynn, did it hurt when Mother Gothel stabbed you? He said, I have a scar. Truly looked at his scar, then lifted her shirt, showing her scar, and she said, so do I. Flynn said, we have to talk to more kids, but afterward, do you want to walk with us through the castle? And Truly said, sure. Christine calls her a miracle baby. Chapter 27. Christine says she was not excited about the commitment ceremony. She writes, Cody hadn't shown up on multiple occasions when I needed him. The kids felt deserted, and I understood that Cody was in love with Robin and that he didn't have much to spare for the rest of us. Christine says because polygamists are already joined for eternity and beyond, they don't believe in renewing vows, so they called the commitment ceremony a celebration of our vows. She writes, our therapist helped us for months and months come up with a family mission statement that would serve as a backdrop for the ceremony. If it had been up to me, we would have made a poster that said, just be nice to each other. The whole thing was done by committee, but Christine still felt like her opinions didn't matter. She didn't like living that way. The entire season was a lead up to the ceremony. So every week they would have to sit on the set and talk about what was important to the family. Cody said the ceremony would serve as a reminder that they are one family and the cul-de-sac homes were one home. But she says that wasn't true. The wives could not agree on a dress in San Francisco, so they opted to have their dresses custom made by a seamstress, but they didn't time it right. The day before the ceremony, the seamstress was still working on adjustments. The day of the ceremony, Mary ran out and bought a dress, and Robin wore one she already owned. The seamstress told Cody she considered running away screaming, and he said on the show, now she knows what it was like to be a member of the family. Christine said, I did not want to be there. Before the ceremony, Cody bought Christine another Claudia ring to replace the one she chucked into the field. She had seen it and liked it, and unbeknownst to her, Cody had a rose gold put on a heart because he knew that was her favorite color. No diamond, though. Christine says there were promises made in the therapy sessions, but no one kept them. She could still see Cody's car in Robin's driveway, and Mary and Cody were still rocky. and she was doubtful about the ceremony bringing back any spark into the family. On the show, though, Christine said of this ceremony, "Oh my gosh, we made it," she writes. "I mean, we had managed not to divorce each other." Cody strung lights from each house to signify their connection, and then told the wives to behave or they'd get kicked out of the family. They were expecting 200 guests for the ceremony, and during a rehearsal, after Christine had propped up the placard with the family's mission statement, it was on a stand, the wind knocked it down. She wondered if it was an omen. Before the ceremony, the family took hours of photos together. Christine writes, "Truly started to cry, and Cody's face turned bright red as he clenched his jaw." Cody yelled, "Look down the lens. You look at him." Christine said, "Cody, you sound so mean." Cody said, "I have been taking pictures for 2 hours. Everyone else had been doing it for like 15 minutes. Christine writes, "The ceremony began. Cody said we embrace the spirit of abundance and affection. Janelle talked about making conscious and responsible choices. Robin cried as she talked about embracing one another with the covenant of an eternal nature. We all signed the statement in front of our friends and family and the cameras. I remember thinking, if I'm going to stay, it needs to look different from this." The wives did a sand pouring ceremony where they poured different colored sand from individual containers into one container to signify togetherness. Christine remembers during the middle of it thinking, "This is ridiculous. I'm not even going to be staying." She says the thought came out of nowhere. After the sand ceremony, the kids gave the moms roses and they planted a family tree, and the night ended with everyone dancing. 2 weeks later, Christine's container of sand tipped over and broke. Chapter 28. Christine says with Robin giving birth to Ariella in January of 2016, the family now had 18 kids. She says she has never been good at self-care, and with that many kids, it can feel selfish. She also adds women are not taught to take the time to replenish their souls so that they can take care of others, and they aren't taught that taking time for self-care is not immoral. You have to be self-aware and put yourself first. Otherwise, you lose yourself and you won't grow as a human. Christine writes, "We believed plural marriage would help us grow, but it was because it was a sacrifice. It'll make you the best person ever because you'll go through so many hard times. Endure through the end," they always told us. She wonders why they can't enjoy through the end. She chooses to be happy, but she says, choosing to be happy in an unhappy marriage may have been the best way for her to stay resilient. One source of happiness for Christine was her, quote, trashy Scottish romance novels. She writes, "Hit me with the cheapest, trashiest potboiler you can find. Listen, I was dealing with real-world problems. All I wanted to worry about was whether the two people who obviously hated each other passionately would end up falling in love. After a forceful, stolen kiss that made her feel some kind of way underneath her rage-filled indignation. And yes, if anyone tried that with one of my kids, I'd knock their block off. So inappropriate." The kids always ask her what she wants for her birthday, and one year in Vegas, she said, "I want a bath. I want to be left alone in the bathtub." Her bathtub was giant with jacuzzi jets, so the kids cleaned the bathroom, ran her a bath, lit some candles, and gave her a new trashy Scottish romance novel. Then Aspen took the kids out for hours. Oh, that's really sweet. The kids would gift her with these trashy romance novels, and if it was particularly trashy, one of them would read the back cover in front of the whole family and the cameras if they were around. She said it was embarrassing, but her kids took care of her. Christine says the family fell into a routine in Vegas and made the best of their situation. Cody and Mary got a legal divorce in September 2014 so that Cody could marry Robin and legally adopt her children. Cody and Mary were still spiritually married, and she thought giving up her legal status as his wife would improve her relationship with Cody, but it only got worse. Christine writes, "Not long after, Mary told us she had reached out to someone online who made her feel seen and loved, but that person whom she'd been flirty and honest with turned out to be a scam artist, a creep. She was mortified and heartbroken, and I hurt for her. No one should have to go through such a horrible betrayal, and I wish she'd had the chance to sort through that whole mess privately." They didn't like talking about hard topics like Mary's catfishing scandal on camera, but the director would say things like, It seems like you're about to say something and you get super, super close, and then you say nothing. We would like it if maybe you share what was going on inside your mind. Christine says, I have no doubt it would never have happened if Cody hadn't completely withdrawn his affection. I've been on the wrong side of Cody, and it's a lonely place. But from that point on, he blamed her for their relationship issues. As the marriage of some of the wives was going downhill, some of the adult kids began their own romantic journeys. In 2015, Janelle's daughter Maddie moved to Utah to attend Utah State and soon started dating Caleb. They became engaged and their wedding was set for June 2016. But first, Maddie had to tend to a matter with Christine, which was not discussed on the show. Christine says just before the wedding, she tore her ACL and meniscus and had to undergo surgery. Cody brought her home from the hospital and was getting ready to leave the house when Christine asked him, What do I need to do? He said, I don't know. And she said, They didn't give you any instructions? He told her no, but that he had picked up the pain pills they prescribed for her and gave her the bag and then left. Her mom and daughter stayed to help. Christine writes, I have never taken oxycodone before. If something hurt, I took ibuprofen or aspirin. Real pain indicates that something's wrong, and if I take something that masks the problem, I'm not going to fix the problem. So I generally avoid it. With the surgery, I had already fixed the problem, so I took my meds. 3 days after the surgery, she felt like she had the flu and was achy all over. She took an oxycodone and all the pain went away. She realized, oh, I'm not taking this for my knee anymore. I'm taking it because I'm achy everywhere. Then she says it gave her, quote, the best high I ever felt, and it made her feel like she could do anything. So she'd take one before going on the set and she'd breeze through the discussions. But then after 45 minutes, it would start to wear off and she'd start feeling sad. She'd tell herself, you've got another couple of hours before you can take another one. You've just got to get through this. It was a cycle that she would repeat over and over. 2 weeks into her addiction, when she couldn't even think straight, Maddie went to Christine's house and they sat on the sofa in the bedroom. Maddie said, Caleb is coming over and you're a mess. I miss you. We all miss you. We all need you back. So whatever you're doing, figure it out. Christine told her she would stop and that she'd be okay. Then Christine called Cody and told him, I have an addiction to oxycodone. I'm going to need your help to get off this. Christine writes, I broke the capsules in half. I gave half of them to Aspen because I knew it would be mortifying to have to ask her for more. After I started taking the half dose, I never had the high again, and I never had the low. After about a week of that, Cody took all of the young girls out of town, and I spent the weekend in bed sobbing, watching Pretty Woman over and over and sobbing. I couldn't handle my life. I couldn't handle anything. My mom stayed with me and took care of me. Christine ended up giving her mom the rest of the pills, who then took them to a pharmacy for disposal. All she wanted was oxycodone, and she would get angry because she couldn't get it. It took her 6 months before she started feeling normal again. Because her addiction happened so fast and took so long to recover, she decided to tell her kids about it. If it could happen to her, it could happen to them. She does acknowledge, though, that medical professionals say a person will heal faster when they're not in pain. Stop taking oxy when an ibuprofen will do it. Her addiction still tempts her, but she knows better. She had a root canal and told the dentist she couldn't have oxycodone. After the procedure, she took Tylenol and was fine. Christine writes, when I think back to that time, I don't know what might have happened if Maddie hadn't felt comfortable coming to me. If we hadn't had all those years of sitting on the couch and talking about everything, from lost teeth to first kisses. And I don't know if I would have been strong enough to get up out of it if I hadn't already discovered that I loved myself enough to want me back. Christine says McKelty moved to St. George, Utah, and began dating Tony Padron. After getting her associate's degree at UNLV, McKelty and Tony came home and announced they were going to get married. Christine says the family had only met Tony a few times at that point, and she handled the announcement poorly. She was shocked. McKelty was only 19, and Christine didn't even know the relationship was that serious. But Christine was also worried that McKelty might be repeating the same mistake that Christine had made with Cody. She had always told her kids, find a friend, build a partnership, love is a gradual thing and will come. Looking back, she wishes she would have dated Cody and gotten to know him in a more intimate level instead of getting married and hoping love would grow. Maybe he would have realized back then there was no attraction, or maybe she would have. She wanted Mykelti to experience romance and passion, and she didn't see romance between Mykelti and Tony. Then one day the family played a silly couples game, and Christine came to realize Mykelti and Tony knew one another better than any of the wives with Cody. She realized Mykelti and Tony would be fine together. It hit Christine hard, though. Cody was with Robin, Maddie was with Caleb, Mykelti was with Tony. She thought, oh, these are all soulmates, and Cody and I just don't have it. Chapter 29. Christine says her family did well in Vegas. While they were living there, Maddie and Mykelti got married, and then Aspen got married. The other kids were doing well in school, and they planned to attend UNLV so that they could be close to home and take advantage of the in-state tuition. Christine could ignore her feelings of jealousy and anger and anything else that upset her as long as the kids were close. Then in 2017, the Oakland Raiders football team announced they'd be moving to Vegas. Christine writes, everything was going to hell, Cody grumbled, and the kids wouldn't be safe and traffic would be bad, and seriously, we lived in Vegas. It's not known as the city of morality. A football team seemed like the least of our worries. She says the family then started talking about the schools not being safe, but her kids were doing fine and excelling. Janelle's kids were too. One day, Cody told them they were moving out of Vegas, and he had a plan, but the wives could pick where they ended up. Christine writes, as it turned out, even the picking of the place had been preordained. As a family, which meant everyone but Mary, Janelle, and me, we decided to move to Flagstaff. All right, I remember thinking, I guess that's what we're doing. She was furious because she didn't want to uproot the kids from their friends and schools again, but she also didn't want to be the reason why the family would break up if she stayed behind. Janelle was also not thrilled about the move. Christine says it wasn't until they moved to Vegas that she learned how independent Janelle was. Janelle had no problem making travel plans without waiting to find out if Cody was going to join them. She told Christine, I let him know. If he wants to come, he can. So when Cody talked to them about the move, Janelle said to Christine, why don't we stay here? Staying in Vegas meant they could keep their kids in school, and Christine would be close to Maddie and Aspen. And for a brief moment thought, why don't we stay here? But again, she didn't want to split up the family, and she reasoned with herself that moving with them would be the best chance the kids could have at having a better relationship with their dad. Cody was now saying, I don't care where we go. We just have to get away from the Raiders. Christine writes, my kids should all be Raiders for Halloween one year. It seems it would be terrifying. Anyway, Cody kept throwing out Flagstaff as a possibility. Christine had never been to Flagstaff, so Cody took her there for her birthday, where he showed her around town and then stopped at a property he wanted to purchase called Coyote Pass. It was 14 acres of undeveloped land that looked out over the mountains, and each wife could pick where they wanted their homes to sit on. Christine fell in love with the view and said, I could move here. Christine writes, I thought Cody would realize what he was missing. He and Robin had been together for a few years, so maybe the shine had worn off enough for him to remember his other families. The big family picture had always been important to him. And I would think, you're going to realize how incredible your kids are, and you're going to want to be in their lives again. Because what we had in Wyoming was so good and so cool. She wanted her family to be special again and thought Coyote Pass would help balance them out. Cody talked to Mary about the move and how it was a possibility to restart their relationship. And she was in. Janelle loved the property probably more than anyone else. And all the wives believed Cody when he promised them Coyote Pass would be a reset. Aspen had just gotten married, and she struggled with the family's decision to move. Christine was sad too. Aspen didn't understand why they had to move, and Christine didn't know how to explain it. Aspen said, so we're just going to be alone? And it broke Christine's heart. Dad just felt like we needed to go. Looking back, Christine thinks perhaps she and Janelle should have stayed in Vegas and let their kids finish school there. In Vegas, she and Janelle could have worked on growing their friendship, but had they stayed, they probably wouldn't have gotten the finality they needed. Christine writes, about a month after we moved in 2018, we learned that Dayton, Robin and Cody's son, had been accepted to the university in Flagstaff. Christine was so angry. She says, was that why we moved? So Robin could be closer to her son while I was pulled farther away from my children? This may surprise you, but things didn't improve for the Cody Brown family from there. Nothing could be built on Coyote Pass until it was paid off, so the wives looked for affordable places to live, and some of them felt like they had moved under false pretenses. Christine writes, it seemed like we weren't worried about the raiders. It seemed like we were worried about Dayton going off to college. Cody still controlled the family money as well as the payment for the property. I continued to tell Cody what I needed and to then receive a check. I believed everything extra would be put toward Coyote Pass, as did Mary. Janelle handled our books so she could see where most of the money went. As for their living situation, Janelle got a small apartment, Robin rented a large home, and Mary moved into a rental. But the landlord soon told her that the neighbors didn't want a polygamist living there, so she moved again. I guess Arizona doesn't have fair housing laws. Christine couldn't find a rental that worked for her kids, so she ended up buying a house with the intention of selling it when it was time to move to Coyote Pass. Christine writes, I remember constantly asking Cody why we hadn't paid off the property and why we hadn't started building anything. About 6 months after we moved to Flagstaff, he gathered us all for a major presentation. He was excited, his hair flopping, ready to hit us with yet another big idea. He unveiled the one house plan, this idea that, as we had in Lehigh, we would all have separate apartments in one big house. Cody would have his own separate space with a gorgeous view and grand windows, and our apartment would be afterthoughts. Christine thought, no way, no, I could never leave. In Vegas, she had grown independent and set her family up so she could give her kids an amazing life. Sharing a house again would be a trap. Cody said apart from having his own private space at the center of the house, he would also build a cabin on another part of the land for himself so he could escape. Christine thought, okay, so you obviously don't like the idea of all of us together in one house either. Christine told him, I'm not really interested in doing that. She was done trying to be a team player on a team that ignored her needs. Cody asked why not, and she told him it would be a step backward and she wouldn't have anything in her name. Christine writes, TLC paid all of us in a lump sum, which went into a business we created. But once again, there never seemed to be enough money to take care of our big expenses. It was weird and frustrating because I knew how much money we were getting, and we should have been fine. While the rest of us needed to get approval from the family to spend extra money beyond our monthly payroll, Cody, it seemed to me, could spend however much he wanted without our approval. Janelle had recently told Christine on the show, Cody would take out funds, and I don't know what for, and the money was just being spent, lots of it. Christine says this horrified Janelle. The family money didn't appear to be going to pay off Coyote Pass. Christine remembers, I didn't want to go back to the days of being told there was no money for groceries to feed my kids, but plenty for a sports car for Cody, or a diamond for Robin's ring. Back to the one house idea, Christine knew that Cody having his own space meant he would never be at hers. He said, no, I wouldn't, because I'd have my own house. And Christine said, you would always be at Robin's house. He said, well, she has young kids. And Christine said, Truly is a year and a half older than Solomon. She realized this would not be a fresh start or Wyoming again. Mary was all for the one house idea because Cody had sold the idea of moving to her as a fresh start for them both. But Christine had no interest in living with Mary again because their relationship had not improved. Christine says she and Mary worked for the same company, and it was Mary who had brought her into the company. And they both went on a cruise together along with Maddie and Leon's partner, Audrey. Christine saw this as a chance to see if things would be different, and Christine and Mary could have fun. Mary was Christine's sponsor, so she was supposed to introduce her to people and tell her about the company and its opportunities. Well, early in the trip, Mary thought Christine ignored her, but it wasn't true. Christine simply had not seen Mary, and that was all it took. Christine writes, for the rest of the trip, I remember that she ignored me completely, snubbed me, insulted me, or hit me with little barbs in front of other people. It was bizarre, and also exactly why I had ended the friendship the first time around. After that trip, Mary called Christine, and here's how Christine remembers the conversation. Mary said, I want to be friends. Christine said, seriously? No. Mary said, I know, but it was a long time ago. Christine said, you were mean to me 2 months ago on the cruise. Christine understands that Mary went through a lot, but being nice and kind is still important. So the thought of a friendship and living with Mary again was a hard no for Christine. Christine also didn't trust Robin and didn't want to live with her either. She says, Besides, if I could see what was going on across the cul-de-sac, it likely wouldn't be better across the hallway. Then Janelle would want to create a giant garden and would want Christine's help, and Christine hates gardening. She just wanted her space for her and her kids where she would make the decisions. Christine was also acutely aware that Cody was an absent dad, and she worried about her family's future. If they all moved into one house, all the finances would be tied up in it and there would be no escaping. Christine says about 6 months after they moved to Flagstaff, she noticed that Janelle didn't care if Cody joined her and her kids on outings. Janelle would tell Christine where they were going, and Christine would ask if Cody was going, and Janelle would say, I don't know, he can do whatever he wants to do. This was a strange concept to Christine, who up until that point felt an outing wouldn't be fun without Cody, and it kept them from doing things. With the realization that Cody wasn't going to be a major participant in her family, she decided she would go on trips with or without him. In February, she took the kids sledding by herself, and they had a great time. From then on, she invited him, and if he wanted to go, he could go. She soon realized that doing things became easier without Cody around. Christine writes, Cody could be pretty dramatic, making it hard when he was around. We had to plan the right foods, and stuff had to be packed in the right order, and he needed the proper number of running shoes, and we had to be back in time for him to kiss Robin's kids goodnight, and so on. We would spend the day wondering if it would be enough. I preferred it when we did things without him. Peyton had graduated school and moved to St. George when they were still in Vegas. Now, a year after the move to Flagstaff, Christine was living with just her younger girls. But they would visit Utah to see Aspen and her husband Mitch, and McKelty and Tony and Peyton. Christine and the girls had a lot of fun doing things together. And when the girls would ask about Cody joining them, she told them, look, I don't think so. So let's do it on our own. We're fine. We can do it without him. Janelle and Christine and all their kids would do things together in Flagstaff, like going on hikes. Robin even let Dayton join them. They would also travel together, such as trips to Vegas on weekends, and would go kayaking. But Christine was still frustrated that she had to do so many things alone, and she wondered, based on their eternal vows, if she would spend her time in the celestial kingdom alone too. She realized she had watched life go by waiting for Cody to say yes to being with with their family. Before this realization, she used to cover for Cody. She remembers one day she was going to take the kids kayaking, and Gwendolyn asked, Is Dad coming? Christine said her usual line, Gosh, he wishes he could come. He loves spending time with you. Gwendolyn and Isabel looked at her in a way that said, Yeah, right. So Christine stopped lying for him. She said, He's not coming. They said, Okay. Then she said, Look, I don't think he's ever going to come. If he does, we'll just see how the day goes. Christine writes, They were better with that than with me trying to manage their beliefs about a father who never showed up. That conversation also helped me stand up for myself more. If I wasn't painting a false front on his image for the girls, I sure as hell wasn't going to gaslight myself anymore. Christine says Cody did go kayaking with them once on Father's Day, but he stood on the shore the whole time in his jeans, then left after an hour. She thought that was worse than him not showing up at all, and the girls could tell he didn't want to be there. After that, they stopped asking about him. Truly would ask sometimes, and Christine would tell her, Nope, not today. Christine writes, I didn't realize how much of my life I focused on Cody at the expense of me and my kids until I moved to Flagstaff. Even as we rearranged our time, eating habits, and even furniture to meet his needs, he didn't do anything to make us want to spend more time with him. That's not a partnership. Spending more time without him, she learned to not just like herself as a woman, but loved herself as a woman, which Cody didn't do. She writes, A funny thing happened soon after. I began to understand that leaving was a real possibility. Chapter 30. Christine says the plots at Coyote Pass were divided into 4 among Cody and the wives, and each wife got to pick which plot she wanted. Christine picked the plot with an amazing view, but the titles on the plots were divided in a very odd way. Instead of each wife having her name on her own plot, it was assigned this way. Cody, Robin, and Christine were on one plot. Cody, Janelle, and Mary were on one plot. Cody and Robin were on one plot. Christine doesn't know why Cody did it that way, and they weren't there the day it was done. Cody and the wives met at Coyote Pass, and unbeknownst to any of them, he had hired a surveyor. As they all walked the perimeter of the land, Cody told Christine the plot that she had picked with the incredible view. Well, she couldn't have it. Christine was devastated and felt like he was removing her from the property and he didn't want her in the family anymore. She doesn't explain in the book why Cody said she couldn't have that plot. By this time, the whole family knew how much time Cody was spending with Robin and that he had used COVID as an excuse to live with her and ignore the rest of the family, kids included. Before the pandemic, Janelle gathered all the wives in a restaurant and asked, "Do we want to be sister wives, really?" They all said yes, they want to be sister wives. Christine initially thought that if they could build on Coyote Pass and move in, the family would be okay. Then COVID hit and Cody made a decision to spend all his time with Robin and her kids. It showed his favoritism and that Cody found his soulmate. Christine says it's okay that he only wanted to be married to Robin, but to drag the other wives along as pawns to keep the show going, lining his pockets, not okay. Christine writes, by month 8, as we worried that the property would be repossessed if we didn't make our payments, Cody and Robin had paid a large chunk of money on her house. She needed more, and Janelle and I worried we wouldn't pay off the property by a deadline we had all agreed to. If we missed it, we would lose Coyote Pass. Janelle tried to force the issue by buying an RV and installing it there to live in, shuttling water and propane gas, while Cody said he refused to limit his living situation based on her choices. He used it as an excuse to stay away. Then Cody started talking about how he needed the family to be, quote, loyal. And he began saying there were morals and values the family needed to live by, but no one knew what those rules were. In August of 2020, Christine's therapist had her write down a list of things that were important to her in a marriage. That night, Cody asked what she talked about in the therapy session, and she asked him if he wanted to hear her list, and he said yes. A companion, someone who was attracted to me, someone who put my kids first, someone who wanted to be around me, someone who would be a partner in my home. Cody looked at her and said, I'm none of those things for you. She knew it, but she wasn't expecting him to confirm it. And she wasn't expecting him confirming it to hurt so much. This absolutely also confirmed that there was no hope for this marriage or her kids having a good dad. She told him, no, you're none of those things. Christine writes, the kids had quickly grown frustrated by his rules, believing that as the rest of the country was able to get jobs, go to school, and date, they should be able to as well, especially as the COVID vaccines became available. But any child who didn't follow the rules was ostracized and accused of being disloyal. In Janelle's case, Cody insisted she choose between him and her kids. You can guess how well that went for Cody. About 7 months into COVID, Isabel needed to have surgery on her back. The family had known for a long time that Isabel's spine curved and would require surgery, but they tried to push it off until she was done growing. In the meantime, she would do exercises and stretches to slow down the curving. When COVID hit, they tried to postpone surgery until after the pandemic was over. But at that point, Isabel's spine curved at a 77-degree angle, and it caused a lot of pain for her. Christine had been going to doctor's appointments with Isabel, and one day the doctor said the surgery needed to be done. It was not elective. During this time, Cody accused Christine of, quote, traveling and breaking COVID protocols as if she were traveling for a vacation instead of going to doctor's appointments for their kid. Christine writes, the surgical center required us to be on the East Coast and quarantine for 2 weeks before Isabel could go in. It was only an hour from my sister's house, so in September 2020, we stayed with her for the 2 weeks. She agreed to quarantine with us. I thought Cody would come with us because it was a major surgery and because he had talked before about being there for her. Isabel and I met with him outside the house as usual to tell him. Cody said, well, I'm not going to go. Isabel, who was terrified of the surgery, said, oh. Christine could see the shock and disappointment in Isabel's face. Cody needed to be home to tuck Robin's kids into bed, and Christine writes, the dad with the posse of kids and matching tool belts, the one I had loved in Wyoming, was gone. Cody told Christine, why do you have to go? Isn't it really close to your sister's house? She can watch her. Christine tried to remain calm and told him, she's 17. This is a major surgery and I'm going to be there. Cody said, well, I can't go. I think you're going because you know it's COVID and you know I can't go. Christine writes that Cody was trying to make it about himself. She told him, I thought you were going because when we talked about it before, you said you would. Christine mentions in the book that Cody had gone to a few of Isabel's doctor's appointments. Isabel said, I need to go inside now. Cody left, and back inside the house, Isabel said to Christine, what does he mean he can't go to my surgery? Christine said, I don't know, but I'm going to be there. Isabel said, I thought we were his family. Christine writes, I did too. I decided we would make the best of it, and I would choose to be positive. My kid needed me. She needed to believe that her dad wanted to be there. She needed to get through a major surgery with a long, painful recovery. Christine rented a beach house in New Jersey, and she and the kids, who she had taken out of school, walked the shore every day, and they had a wonderful time together. She wished Cody would have been there for Isabel, but she didn't need him there. Christine didn't need him there, and things were easier. Christine says for this surgery, the doctors needed to collapse one of Isabel's lungs so they could access her spine. Then they used screws to attach 2 nylon fiber ropes all the way up her spine to straighten it like a zipper. When Isabel woke up, she asked, where's my dad? The nurse told her, he'll be here in a minute, sweetie. Don't worry. The nurse assumed her father would be there. Isabel said, I just need my daddy. And Christine told her, your dad can't be here. All night, Isabel kept asking, where's my dad? The next morning, Isabel said, my dad's not going to come. Christine said, no, he can't. Christine writes, she must have figured he would surprise her, but that he wouldn't let her down. She asked if she could call him, and I handed her the phone. Isabel asked Cody, will you sing me a song? Cody said, no, I don't feel like singing. Christine writes, I almost lost my mind. The surgery went well, and Isabel's curve went down to 17 degrees. She'll probably have a little bit of a hump in her back, but now she has full range of motion, which she wouldn't have had they chosen the old-fashioned rod surgery. They stayed at the hospital for 5 days, and Isabel was in pain for months afterward. But it was one of the best decisions Christine had ever made as a mom, and she did it all without Cody. Christine writes, I'd always wondered if I would be okay alone. I'd heard Mary through the years say, I'm okay alone. But it didn't seem like she was. She didn't like it, and it was imposed on her. I thought, I didn't want to be fake being fine, but I was fine alone. Christine and the kids were on the East Coast for a total of 3.5 weeks for this surgery. Cody may not have wanted to leave Robin and her kids that entire time, but Christine says he could have visited Isabel in the hospital or even after the surgery at Christine's sister's house, but he didn't. He did visit with Isabel a few times when they got back to Flagstaff. Christine would bundle up Isabel, and Isabel would lounge on a reclining folding chair outside and hang out with Cody. Christine writes, Aspen, Mitch, and Hunter did come out after the surgery to spend time at my sister's house. Cody didn't know that until he saw the episode. It made him look bad, really bad. Chapter 31. Christine says during COVID, she hunkered down with her girls in her home, and it was the first time in years she had time to just sit and think. She thought about how in her church, living plural marriage means you'll be rewarded and you'll create worlds together with your husband and sister wives for eternity. Soon after Isabel's surgery, as Christine was walking downstairs from her loft bedroom, she had a realization. Christine writes, I'm going to create worlds with Cody, Robin, Mary, and Janelle for eternity. I felt as if my heart flip-flopped like a spastic, angry little fish. I don't want to create worlds with these people. For all eternity, my opinion and needs wouldn't matter. I couldn't make it fit. I sat down hard on the stairs. Christine's bedroom had been used as a family room by the previous owner, so there was no door. Soon after she had the realization on the stairs, Cody said, let's put in a door. She was shocked. She thought maybe installing a door to her bedroom meant that their relationship would go back to a physically intimate one. Christine writes, he had been coming over at 5 or 6 at night based on whether we'd quarantined and showed no signs of illness. And we'd hang out with the kids, eat dinner, and play a game. The kids knew to be on their best behavior, and we discussed what they might tell Cody while he was there. A story from school, a book they read, but he'd be on his phone the whole time, even during dinner, disengaged from all of us. Christine would ask him, can you not do that at dinner? Cody would get upset. He'd say, I have to watch this, and then would go back to whatever video he was watching. So I wonder if he did that at Robin's table too. Christine says things were awkward between them, but sometimes they tried to make it nice. He still never came over during the day on weekends, only at night. and they'd watch TV or a movie, and he'd play with Truly a little bit. Then she and Cody would go upstairs, and he'd sit in his chair on his phone, and she would go to bed. Christine writes, but a door would mean the children couldn't hear us or inadvertently walk in. Did he want to be my husband with benefits? It had been a minute. Cody said as he framed the doorway, this will be great because then Zelda can't get up here. Zelda was their cat. Christine realized the door wasn't about physical connection, but about fur. She needed clarification, or as she writes, quote, to force a decision. After they installed the door, Christine said to him, you talked a lot about Zelda and keeping her downstairs. I thought we were putting the door in so we could have the intimate part of our marriage back. Cody said, I'm not really interested in that with you. Christine said, what? She thought, after everything, 25 years. Cody said, I never have been. She knew he hadn't found her physically attractive after what he had written about her and nachos in the book, but she assumed that had changed over the years, especially after she lost weight. Cody told her, I don't like how you treat your sister wives. Christine was confused. She didn't understand how his interest in her correlated with her relationship with her sister wives. He had told her she saved the family by mediating between Mary and Janelle. Cody added, I don't like how you treat Robin. Christine writes, oh, there it is. She continues in her book. But blaming my relationship with Robin also sounded like a whole lot of horse shit to me. What in the world did him never being attracted to me have to do with how I got along with my sister wives? Nothing at all. He'd known from the beginning, and he decided to marry me anyway, to take away the possibility of me finding someone who did love me and did find me attractive. For eternity, it was beyond selfish. Cody told Christine, there are a lot of people we know who have separate marriages. Christine guffawed at this, knowing that this meant he could go to his other wives while she spent eternity with no sex. She writes, I didn't get married because I wanted eternal abstinence, she told Cody. You shouldn't have proposed to me. You shouldn't have told me you loved me. Cody left the next morning, and then she and the girls went on a trip, which meant they had to quarantine afterwards, so she didn't see Cody again until another 6 weeks. They were all hanging out outside 6 feet apart when Christine told him she needed to speak with him alone. She told him, I don't want you sleeping in my bed anymore. You're not allowed in my room. He said, whoa, wait. She said, no, I only want people in my room who want to be there, and right now, that's me. She doesn't remember if he said anything, but he soon left after. His belongings were all over her bedroom, and she realized that she didn't even want him there packing. When he was there, she wanted him to spend time with the kids, not packing. She writes, I knew it would take him forever. I remember watching how things had shaken out with Mary, how every time we'd move Mary, he would find a box of his stuff, and he would keep it in his truck, slowly moving out without saying he was moving out. I wasn't going to give him that control. Every morning before the girls woke up, she packed whatever she could of his and would take it to the garage. When Cody came back to the house weeks later, he started to go upstairs to her bedroom. And Christine told him, you're not allowed to come up to my room. Cody said, all my stuff is up there. And that's when she told him all his things were in the garage. Cody asked, what am I supposed to do with it? Christine didn't know and didn't care. Cody asked her where he was supposed to stay, and she told him, you're the one who wanted a separate marriage. You have other houses. Go to one of them. Cody said, so what am I going to do? Just come here and hang out with the kids and leave? She said, that's exactly what you're going to do. And then she told him their marriage was over and she would be moving back to Utah. Yay. Christine learned later after watching the episode that Cody had known about the boxes in the garage before she had told him. He filmed himself in the garage and even counted the boxes. She says after she told him he wasn't allowed in her room anymore, she went around back of the house and let out a primal scream. And she didn't realize he hadn't left yet. Oops, Christine writes. It felt so good. It was my moment when I felt strong. Then I went up to my room and I was so excited to have my space be my space. He existed in such a dark cloud and I didn't have to deal with it in my safe place anymore. I just got to be me. Christine says in her church, if you want a divorce, you have to get a, quote, spiritual release to stay on good terms with the church. She had already left the church in her mind, so she considers her primal scream day as her divorce day, her official divorce day. On her calendar, November 2nd, 2020, she wrote, freedom. His comment about him being disgusted about her eating nachos, she says, "I'm nacho wife anymore." Chapter 32. Christine says she understands how frustrated TLC was when the truth came out about the family dynamics. They went from what appeared to be a happy family to Mary doesn't actually get along with Janelle. Christine doesn't actually get along with Mary. Cody spends all his time with Robin. Cody doesn't actually help out with the kids. And they're not all best friends. She said the director had the same questions as the viewers did, so those were the ones he asked on set. They all tried to remain respectful and not fight on camera, but in Flagstaff, all the little cracks in the family became, quote, chasms. She writes, "We didn't see each other as often because of COVID, which meant we often learned things through family gossip, or worse, through the end of season tell-alls." Christine loves the host, Sukanya Krishnan, aka Suki, but she never knew what Suki was going to ask, and those interviews were really hard. During COVID, TLC sent the family 17 pages of rules to keep everyone safe. Before the pandemic, producers would pre-approve outfits, but now she had to take pictures of whatever outfits she was going to wear to film and send it for approval. She says the family started to come up with these, quote, outlandish outfits. So the producers ended up choosing outfits that the family already had. They also taught the family how to do their own makeup and asked that they style their hair the same way every time they're on camera. She had to do all of this while planning her move out of Flagstaff. After a few months of the families living separately during COVID, Christine and Janelle's families followed all CDC guidelines so that they could spend time together. Masks, washing hands, testing, even more so when they filmed because TLC had extreme protocols. Christine writes, "In the meantime, Cody and Robin had a nanny for her kids. This irked me because the 3 original sister wives had always helped with childcare, and Cody had always told us to ask each other for help rather than pay someone to do it. It also meant they had someone who lived outside the house coming in daily during the pandemic." After Isabel's surgery, Christine and Janelle began to wonder why they couldn't be with the rest of the family, considering the nanny could. Christine writes, "What were the rules for her? Did she wear a plastic suit at all times but not at Robin's house? Did she go through a disinfection tunnel before entering Robin's home? Did she have a mutant gene that left her permanently inoculated?" The family was supposed to meet before Thanksgiving of 2020, and Christine told Janelle that that's where she would ask, "What does the nanny do?" I remember seeing that episode, and it's one of my favorite Christine scenes. She writes in her book here that she has seen all the nanny memes, and she thinks they're hilarious. During the family meeting, Cody gave Mary, Janelle, and Christine his list of COVID rules. No jobs, no visits to girlfriends, bleach your mail. Christine jokes, "Wrap yourself in saran wrap before you leave the house." She says Cody didn't change his COVID rules when the CDC adjusted theirs. She writes, "In fact, when Janelle and I got our vaccinations in December of that year, he said he didn't want us around because we had infected ourselves with the virus. We got the shot so we could all hang out, but he didn't." Cody said, No, I've read enough stuff on it. They say it's not backed by science." Then he'd send Christine a bunch of videos he found. She told him, "I'm never going to watch the videos you send me." She said he sent her conspiracy videos, but also videos about relationships. And she wonders, perhaps we can talk face to face instead? She writes, "In any case, he was extremely paranoid about getting COVID. Robin had to play by the rules because Cody spent all his time there. Though I do think they came up with the rules together. That's how most households did it. We weren't a part of that household, and for the first 9 months of the pandemic, Cody and Robin were the only ones who knew the rules." Cody would tell the rest of the family, "Do whatever you need to do for your own household." Christine says 2 months later, the nanny got COVID. Christine's kids couldn't keep Cody's rules about no jobs and no relationships, so she told him they wouldn't be spending Thanksgiving with him. She and Janelle had planned to do Thanksgiving together, but then Janelle's sister got COVID, so Christine spent it at Aspen's house. She went over Thanksgiving morning, and Aspen said, "Let's just have a mimosa." And they cooked and had an amazing time. Christine says she enjoyed the chaos of previous Thanksgivings with the family, but it was so nice to be able to sit and talk without having to get up every few minutes. There was no stress. There was wine. She says it was a good day, and that helped buoy her for the events that were coming next. Chapter 33. Christine says she loves a good fairy tale, going back to the time she would wear a yellow towel around her head like she was a princess. She says Cody called her a princess when she told him she wanted to move to Utah, but it wasn't in a good way. He said she was, quote, issuing an ultimatum with the move, but she didn't care because she knew how hard she had tried up to that point, and more importantly, who she was as a person. Christine writes, after I left our religion, I began to believe that we have one life. And in that one life, I want to be kind, to send out every bit of good energy I've got while I'm here. But I also want to live a life that's good for me. In wanting to move to Utah, I was thinking about my future castle. She was done with Flagstaff and wanted to move to Utah to be near her adult kids and her mom. Christine got her mom on the phone and told her, I need to leave Cody. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to leave. She says her mom's response was immediate, as if she'd been waiting for the call. Her mom said, okay, you're going to put both of your feet firmly on the ground and you're going to take a deep breath. And then you're going to start moving forward. You already know what you need to do. Christine writes, it's impossible to describe how it felt to have her so immediately there for me. I could weep with her, but there was comfort in it now. Her mom asked, what do you need to do? Christine said, well, I need to move to Utah. And her mom asked, what is it going to take to move to Utah? They went over the basics, and then her mom told her, you need to start making decisions based on joy, not fear. Start making decisions for you. Christine thought back to how she thought her mom was selfish when she left her dad, and now Christine worried about how her kids would feel about her leaving Cody. She told her mom, I feel like I'm being selfish. Her mom said, it's your life. You have to look out for yourself. It's self, it's love, it's not selfish. Christine says it was incredible to hear her mom say this because her mom loves Cody. When her mom sees Cody or Robin or the kids, she always gives them big hugs. Her mom is the most loving person she knows, but it was clear that she knew Cody was not the right person for her daughter. Christine writes, in fact, I thought she had been happy when I married him. She hadn't. I knew things had felt awkward every time we came to town, but at first, that was because I was still working on my relationship with my mom. And then maybe it was because I dragged a circus along with me. But that wasn't it. She struggled with him as my husband. She saw that I always put him first, not my kids and not me. And she saw he liked it that way. Her mom said, you never had a good marriage. Christine expressed her fears about leaving the family, and her mom told her, they're manipulating you. Christine told her what was going on with Coyote Pass and the kids and the finances, and her mom said, that's manipulation. Christine talked to Janelle, who she had become closer with after Janelle moved into the RV at Coyote Pass. Janelle got Christine into one of her favorite things, drinking coffee. She says Mormons aren't supposed to drink coffee because the words of wisdom advises against doing anything that could lead to addiction. Christine met with Janelle, and while enjoying coffee, she told her she was leaving Cody. The pragmatic Janelle said, you can't leave Cody until you create your own source of income. You need to be able to support yourself financially because otherwise, what will you do? Christine says Janelle's marriage to Cody was good, so her response didn't stem from her thinking about leaving him too. She supported Christine's decision, but she had questions too. Janelle said, I've only raised my kids with you. What does this mean for us? Christine says she trusts Janelle, and she trusts Janelle with her kids. Janelle will always be her sister wife, and she hopes that all of their kids will still consider both of them as mom. Janelle helped Christine plan the move to Utah. Christine writes, I still needed to have a conversation with the big guy, not the one with the ringlets. I didn't believe in a testimony like I had with Robin, but I was a religious person who loved Jesus, even if I no longer believed Joseph Smith was a prophet or in the Book of Mormon. Deciding to leave Cody felt spiritual to me because I felt I needed to have a strong connection with God to do it. I didn't want God to be upset with me or to be sad, so I talked to him. Dear God, it's me, Christine. You good with this? Yo, Christine, you're a parent just like I am, and I want to see you happy, just like you want to see your kids happy. She says, it was that simple. If God is a loving, nurturing entity, then why would he bind me to Cody and friends for all eternity? Christine says that was her second strongest testimony following the one where she felt Robin should be in their family, and in a way, the two are related. Robin belongs with Cody, and Christine should not be with Cody, but her own soulmate. Christine's goal was to move to Utah in September, so that gave her 9 months to save money, downsize her belongings so that it would all fit in one moving truck, find a place in Utah to live, and sell her house in Flagstaff. She also had to figure out schooling for the girls, what she would do with her plot at Coyote Pass, how to tell the family, and visitation schedules between Cody and Truly. The first thing she wanted to focus on was her finances. She had to disentangle herself from the families. Christine writes, polygamous marriages are tough because there's no legal documentation. The house was in my name and Cody's. The plot on Coyote Pass was in my name and Cody and Robin's. I couldn't ask for half of anything, but Robin could because she legally married Cody. She could ask for a portion of my house if she left Cody. All the money I had already contributed to the family account or family property would stay there. That's why the sister wives started talking about our legacy for the kids. Christine still had her online clothing line business, which sustained her, but she was still in a lot of debt from Truly's hospital stay. So she worked hard paying that off with her online store. Then there was Isabel's back surgery deductible that had to be paid, $50,000. She was able to get some of the family money to pay that off, and now she could focus on leaving. She laid out goals each month that she would check off, and with each step she found peace and security even if she didn't know what lay ahead. She says, I didn't know it would be so great to live my life for myself and for my kids. It felt simple, a whole new dynamic, different from anything I had done before. She didn't want to take the memories of her bedroom set with her, so she sold it along with other things in the house, discreetly online, posting very limited information. She didn't want the family to figure out she was leaving before she officially told them. What she couldn't sell and didn't want, she donated. She had no interest in keeping anything from a life she no longer recognized. One thing she kept was her snow blower so that she could clear the snow out of the driveway for people who wanted to look at the house. Cody had told Christine, "This is my house." She says the family had helped with the down payment, but she made every mortgage payment and she paid for all the repairs. It was not his house. She was more shocked that he didn't talk about the kids. On the show, Cody talked about how he was worried Christine would date some guy who would swoop in and try to take his money. He wasn't worried about Truly, who should have been his first priority. He was just worried about the money. Christine writes, I felt shocked, but I also think he has always been greedy. His business deals always felt a bit questionable to me. I've watched him through the years at the family meetings, and he always decided where the money went. By the time we split up the family account, there was no money left. And we had been doing the show for 14 years. Dude, your kids don't have shoes and coats, but you have a brand new convertible. She says that convertible angered her. The wives were driving around junk minivans while he got the convertible, but they just played along like, I guess we're new people now that we have the show. Cody said he needed the convertible for some, quote, alone time. But she says he obviously needed it to date, not to dad. Christine's name was on the family account, but it never occurred to her to look at the numbers. She only asked for what she needed and assumed what she didn't use would stay in the account. She learned on the show when Janelle talked about it that family funds weren't distributed evenly, and the money that Christine didn't take, it was simply spent elsewhere. Christine was trying to stay positive, but she was embarrassed at herself. Her kids knew she was in a loveless marriage. Her fans knew. Her dad knew. She asks, how could I allow it when I'm one of the most romantic people I know? Fair maidens, yellow towels, Scottish lores. What had I been thinking? Christine says there was some expert-level gaslighting in the family. She says when you yourself don't gaslight, you don't expect it because you take people at their word. But Cody had a lot of words, and it all came down to being, quote, loyal to him. Christine writes, he wanted our independence until he started to push us out one by one. Then he used Janelle's independence against her to call her disloyal. He used Mary's undying loyalty against her when he convinced her to move to Flagstaff so he could use the money from the sale of her house in Vegas to pay for Robin's house in Flagstaff. By telling her he wanted a reconciliation, before telling the camera he already considered himself divorced from her. He pushed me out initially by saying he didn't find me attractive because I wasn't kind to my sister wives, but ultimately by taking his love away from my children. She realized her kids had witnessed their mom stay in a broken, loveless marriage to a man who expected his wives to put themselves last. She didn't want to set that example for them, and she was frustrated with herself that she had waited so long to leave, but she's given herself grace for that. Christine also knows that she has to keep some of the memories of her marriage positive. Robin's wedding, Valentine's Day, holiday traditions, Cody as a dad when the kids were little, She was leaving bitterness in the past and moving forward happy. Chapter 34. One morning, Christine told Janelle she didn't like polygamy. Christine writes, I think polygamy can cause a person to be too in her head, worried about too many relationships. Do the wives like me? Do they like Cody? Do they like him too much? Does he like me? If he doesn't like me, will he just go to another wife? Janelle said, Whoa, polygamy is why you're strong, and it's why you're going to be able to leave. You are more independent than a lot of women because you've lived plural marriage. Christine says that Janelle had a point, but women who leave monogamous relationships aren't leaving 4 people and all their children when she moves away to Utah. She has no regrets about leaving, though, and feels she made the best of it. She had worked on herself emotionally and physically, and she was happy. Christine writes, on the other hand, I don't think Cody ever worried about whether he was enough. He didn't have to work to be a better person. I think polygamy makes guys lazy and women work harder. At least she had Janelle, who understood what Christine had gone through, and she was grateful to have a sister wife even as she was leaving the family. Cody would say on the show later that he felt like a prisoner in his marriages, and he couldn't leave a wife saying, hey, bitch, I'm done with you. He actually said that on the show. When Christine told Cody she was leaving, Cody said, well, we have to split everything 50-50. He didn't say, let's work this out, or what about Truly? Christine told him, no, I made every house payment. I paid all the utility bills. I did all the repairs. If I paid for my house, it makes no sense to give you half. She says he got really, really mad. Christine says when she first bought the house, the title was under Cody and Christine's names. And this thrilled her because they didn't own many things with both their names. And this made it seem like they were a legit married couple. Then one day he asked that she refinance the house in her name only. She asked, why? And he said, this way, it will be an asset for you. And she writes, gosh, that's altruistic and unexpected. So she refinanced the house in her name only, and she thought it was so nice of him to think of her. Christine writes, about a week later, he told me he couldn't finance his house with Robin. She hadn't yet found a place to buy. If his name was on my mortgage. Oh, right, she adds. I felt like he was doing everything he could to disentangle himself from me and leave me a single mom, and to further entangle himself with Robin. It was demoralizing and embarrassing, and it hurt that something that important to me could be taken away so quickly. But it may have worked out exactly as he'd said, as an asset for me. Cody continued to argue that he should get 50-50 of the sale of the house. Christine finally told him, all right, how about this? How about I keep the money from the sale of my house and you can keep the property at Coyote Pass? You're getting a better deal. Her plot on the land would be worth much more than her home, and she wanted to be done negotiating with Cody. She says in retrospect she wishes she would have negotiated that Mary and Janelle's names be added to their plots so that they could get their fair share, but they would have to fight for what was right for them. Christine took her name off the deed for her plot, and she needed to figure out how to break the news of her leaving. She says the fans saw the unraveling of her marriage, and she knew that some were cheering for her, and it brought her comfort. She needed to continue to be authentic because she was serving as an example for so many. The first person she needed to tell was Tim, because he would need to know the storyline for this season, and because he'd wonder why she was packing Cody's stuff, and why Cody wasn't coming over anymore. She and Cody, who felt he didn't need to be on the Zoom call, told Tim about her leaving, and Tim said, I was afraid it was this. This was not the show I wanted to film. Christine says they had all spent so much time together at this point that she truly felt Tim was genuinely sad for them. She writes, when we started the show, they told us that all reality television families break up. Nah, we said, that's not going to happen to us. The next thing on Christine's list was Isabel's graduation party with the family. She wanted to wait to tell the family about leaving until after the party so that everyone could have a good time. They held the party outdoors at Christine's house because Robin was still uncomfortable with indoor events, even with COVID testing. Isabel asked Christine to sing for her, so Christine, Robin's kids Aurora and Brianna, and Gabe sang Natasha Bedingfield's song Unwritten, while Aurora played the guitar. Christine says it was a great day. Chapter 35. When Christine told Gwendolyn that she was leaving Cody, she expected tears and sadness. Instead, Gwendolyn said, oh, it's about time. Christine said, what? Gwendolyn said, you haven't been happy for years. Christine told her she was moving to Utah, and Gwendolyn said, of course you're going to move to Utah. Christine asked her, "Do you want to move with me?" Gwendolyn, who had really good grades and had gotten a scholarship, said, "No, college is free for me. I'm just going to stay here on my own." That was easy. Next was Maddie. Maddie and Caleb had moved to North Carolina in 2016. Their daughter Evie was scheduled to have surgery, so Janelle flew out for support, and Truly, Isabel, and Christine flew out too. Hunter was also at Maddie's house, and they all hung out, and Christine had too much wine. Christine told Maddie, who said, "Frankly, we're all surprised you stayed as long as you did." Christine was shocked that it was that obvious. She had 3 glasses of wine that night, which was a lot for her, and she continued to talk to Maddie about the divorce when Isabel overheard. Christine writes, "Isabel had always been a daddy's girl. She'd been brokenhearted by his response to her surgery. This hit her as another shock, another blow to the way she thought of her parents. I thought back to how upset I had been when my mom left my dad, how I had blamed her, and I felt sick." Isabel started to cry. Maddie asked Isabel, "When was the last time you saw your parents touch?" Hunter asked, "And when was the last time you felt like they had a good marriage?" They talked, and Isabel understood why Christine had to leave, and she was supportive. Christine called Aspen and McKelty from North Carolina and told them, and they too weren't surprised, and they were supportive. Then Christine called Peyton, and after that, Janelle told the rest of the kids. Everyone was very supportive, which meant a lot to Christine. Now the only one left to tell about the divorce and moving was Truly, but Christine wanted to wait as long as she could before the move. Christine says McKelty was instrumental in her preparation to move to Utah. One day on the phone, Christine told McKelty, "I can't wait until we move to Utah." She didn't realize Truly was behind her. Truly said, "What? Are we moving?" And Christine thought, "Oh, man." She told Truly, "Yeah, we're moving," and she hung up with McKelty. Truly asked, "When is everybody else coming?" Christine said, "It's just you and me, sweetie." And Truly said, "Are you divorcing Dad?" Christine writes, "Am I divorcing Dad? I didn't need a release. I wasn't legally married to him. I had already packed his stuff and moved him out 7 months before. I did it while Truly was at school or sleeping because I wasn't ready for her to know yet, because she was the one who it would impact the most." Christine reflects on how moving to Utah to be closer to her family was bringing her so much joy, but at the same time, the same move could be very traumatic for Truly. Truly had friends whose parents were divorced, parents who had fought in front of the kids and then fought in court over belongings and custody. And Christine says that she knew that in the midst of that court battle, the kids had hoped that there might be a small chance that their parents would get back together. She says she knew in an instant what to tell Truly. "We're already divorced. Have you noticed anything different?" Truly asked, "How long have you been divorced?" Christine told her several months, and Truly acknowledged nothing had changed in those months. Truly told Christine that she didn't want her parents to fight in front of her, and Christine told her they never have and they wouldn't start, and she'd still see her dad. Truly asked, "Am I finding out last?" Christine said, "Yeah." Truly said, "But I'm the one it impacts the most." Truly was sobbing and went into her room, and Christine told Cody immediately that Truly knew. Isabel asked if she could take Truly to a friend's house whose parents were divorced. The friend talked to Truly all night about what it was like. It was a safe space for them. And by the time Truly saw Cody a couple of days later, she had already processed it. Now it was time to tell the wives. Christine writes, "I called my mom. She told me that it would be a hard conversation, and that was okay. She meant that when I have conversations, I tend to cave because I want everything and everyone to be fine." Her mom told her, "You're going to put both feet on the ground, and you're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to say what you need to say." Christine assumed Robin already knew, since she kicked Cody out and he took boxes back to her house. She had already talked to Janelle about it, so all that was left was Mary. She didn't want Mary to hear about it while on camera, so she called her ahead of time. Christine told her, "Real quick, I just want to tell you that I'm leaving Cody. I don't think it's fair to tell you on camera." And Mary said, "Whoa, I have so many questions." Christine told her to think about them, and she'd answer anything in person. Cody and the wives met outside Christine's house, where they set up their cell phones to record. There was no camera crew because of the pandemic. Then they sat in chairs 6 feet apart. Christine says it was the hardest meeting in her life because she wasn't sure how the others would respond. Would they understand, or would they be antagonistic? Or worse, would they try and persuade her not to leave him? Christine is not one for beating around the bush, so she just said, "I'm leaving Cody." She added, I need to make a choice to have joy in my life and peace. There hasn't been a lot of hope at all until I decided to leave. Mary looked shocked, but she didn't ask very many questions. Mary said, I'm just processing at this point. Then Christine told him she was moving to Utah. Cody said, I never said you could move to Utah. You never asked if you could move. You said you were moving. Christine writes, he said he wanted joint custody of Truly, but that objection quickly disappeared, probably with the realization that he rarely saw her, and it would be a hard argument to make. During an interview on the show later, Christine said, I find it ironic that now that I'm leaving, now he wants to be involved in my kids' lives. Now he wants 50-50 with them. Well, hell, he could have had 50-50 with them the whole bleeped word time we lived here. He doesn't get 50-50. He hasn't been around enough for that. Janelle had already known Christine was leaving, but she cried. She was concerned about how this split would affect their relationship with each other and the relationship between their kids. Janelle said, You've just been so much the fabric of everything. Christine writes, There were several times when we were sad, and they asked whether I was sure, and Robin got mad and made it about herself. Not, Are you okay? I'm so sad for you. But, how does this affect me? This isn't what I signed up for, and you should stay in a crap marriage so I can have my fake version of polygamy or something. Christine says everyone knew how bad it was for years and figured Christine wasn't going anywhere. Now she was going. Isabel moved to North Carolina to live with Maddie, and Christine took her there. Before she did, though, she put her house on the market and told Cody about it. Gwendolyn stayed in the house while she was gone and helped keep it clean for potential buyers who wanted to see the house. A week after Christine returned from North Carolina, Gwendolyn found her own place and moved out. Christine quickly got an offer on the house, but the first buyers backed out. A week after, it was sold to new buyers. 2 weeks before Christine and Truly moved to Utah, she and Cody and the wives met at her house again to let them know they were moving. Cody lost his mind, even though she had told him the previous November she was moving to Utah. Christine writes, He said, as we recorded, that I had always been mean to Robin, and I had never tried to have a good relationship with my sister wives. And then he yelled dramatically, Man, just the knife in the kidneys over all these years. The sacrifices that I made to love you, wasted. She says this was probably the only day ever where one could not read her facial expressions, just blank. In her mind, she was thinking, I can't believe he's saying this on camera. He sounds like an absolute narcissist. How insulting is this? It was a sacrifice for you? Christine writes, Here's what I remember about that day and the days that followed. Robin misconstrued, I think intentionally, and controlled my words. She asked me if I wanted to work on my past relationships. Well, no. I don't want to live in the past, and that's why I'm leaving. I had tried to work on my relationship with Cody, but it was like shoveling mud. I'd work on it, and the outside problems continued to pour in. And the mud certainly wasn't trying to help. I told her I needed time. Robin took this as Christine saying she wanted nothing to do with Robin or Robin's kids. Instead of understanding, Christine needed time to recover and sort things out. Robin's latest antic was just more of the same to Christine. A way to keep me and my children out of Cody's big picture. Christine loved Robin's kids. She loves all the kids. She writes, But I was so over Robin that I thought, fine, if that's what she's going to do and that's what she's going to say, it means I won't have a relationship with those kids. And I think that's terrible, but they're her kids. I can't change that. They're not part of my life anymore, and that makes me sad. Robin would later say that Christine was still married to Cody unless one of three things happened. The church approved the divorce, Christine proved the marriage was broken, or Christine sleeps with someone else. Christine says she didn't need the church's approval because she was no longer part of the church. Secondly, she didn't believe in the church, so she didn't care to provide proof of a broken marriage. Lastly, quote, I wasn't going to have a family meeting and let everybody know when I'd made the big move. Christine writes, Our divorce was strictly between us and built on years' worth of problems. But Robin, expecting so much attention for herself and her kids to the detriment of the other wives in combination with COVID, exposed our problems. Would we have made it if Robin hadn't come into the family? I don't know. As our kids got older and we became a 5-person house of empty nesters, our equilibrium might have tipped sideways, and I don't know that the family staying together was the best thing. Chapter 36. Christine says, I just divorced Cody Brown, and now I'm going to Disneyland. And that's exactly what she did. She and Janelle took a fun bonding trip with Truly and Savannah. That's when Cody got COVID. Christine writes, He called Janelle and asked her to come back to Flagstaff to get him medicine. Robin was sick too and ended up going to the emergency room to get checked out. Cody was a mess. It hit him emotionally, and he was severely depressed. The systemic inflammation caused by COVID can affect the way your brain works, so some people dealt with depression and even hallucinations during the pandemic. Everyone in that house was sick except for Aurora, who slept in a different part of the house so she wouldn't get sick either, Janelle told Cody. I'm in California. Cody asked, can you come home? Christine says when Janelle got COVID, Cody got mad at her for messing up his schedule, and it proved to him that her family wasn't following his rules. Garrison had gotten COVID from a coworker who did not disclose to everyone he was positive. Because Cody was mad, he didn't lift a finger to help Janelle, and Christine was shocked at how self-involved he was. Christine writes, but Cody hoped Janelle would drive back from California so she could, go to the drugstore for him? He could Instacart like everybody else. Janelle told Christine, I feel so bad for him. Christine said, no, you're not going. Girl, what would you do? Are you going to administer the medicine to him? No. Will you do anything more than drop it off at his door? No. Janelle told Cody, I'm not coming back. You need to call somebody else to help you. Cody called Gabe, who said he would run out and grab the things Cody needed. But Gabe was really hurt because it was his birthday that day, and Cody didn't say a word about it. Cody did call later and apologized to Gabe, though, for forgetting. A few days later, Cody called Gwendolyn and wished her a happy birthday, and then immediately followed it up with, I have COVID. Everyone recovered, and Christine and Janelle had a wonderful time. Christine says her relationship changed with Janelle after she left Cody. Now that they both weren't married to him, it was easier, and their togetherness didn't feel forced. There was no pressure of, why does their marriage work when ours doesn't? Christine and Truly moved to Utah in almost a year's time from when she first told Cody she was leaving. She had spent so many years heartbroken that by the time she moved, she had already processed it and moved on into happiness. McKelty had found a house in Utah and had FaceTimed Christine with the tour. When they arrived, Truly picked out her room, and as soon as they plopped down their mattresses, it felt like home. They began unpacking, but Christine wasn't sure what to do with the old family photos. Truly had wanted them, so Christine put them in a place that was easily accessible for her. But Christine didn't want to put the pictures up in the house because she wanted a fresh start. She did not want to be reminded of those times. Aspen and McKelty had lived 6 hours apart before Christine moved to Utah. Aspen lived in Salt Lake City, so McKelty moved to Lehi so they could all be near to one another. Christine writes, when I moved to Utah, I stopped everything for the kids, particularly since they didn't have a full-time dad or even a part-time dad for the last few years. I had to be the best mom ever just until we all got straightened out. As I worked on that, Truly and I drove back and forth to Flagstaff constantly. I had to deal with the house, and we were still filming in Arizona. They had 2 of everything, so that all they needed to do was pack a suitcase and take a laundry bag for the dirty clothes. When they got home, they'd do laundry and then repack the suitcase. Christine didn't want to leave the show at this point because viewers had joined her on her journey, and she wanted them to see what her happy looked like. This resulted in a chaotic schedule, which left no time for dating even if she wanted to. Besides, she poured herself into her kids, and no one would want to date a person so engaged with their past. At first, Christine and Truly would stay at their house on Flagstaff visits because it hadn't sold yet. After that, they stayed in the same room at the same hotel to keep a routine. If Christine needed to be in Flagstaff on Wednesday, she'd spend time with her family on Monday and then leave on Tuesday for the drive that could take up to 9 hours. By then, McKelty had given birth to her first child, Avalon. Along the way to Flagstaff, Christine and Truly would make stops at restaurants or they'd sightsee. But she said every single time they'd leave for Arizona, Christine would get sick, and she hadn't noticed it until McKelty pointed it out. It felt like she had the flu every time, and it would disappear by the time she got to the hotel. She realized it was because she was so stressed about having to be in Flagstaff and its potential drama that it manifested physically. Christine had one last truckload of stuff to move back to Utah. While she was in Utah, Cody wanted to see Truly for a few hours. When he dropped her off, Christine asked Cody to help her load the snowblower so that she didn't have to wait for Garrison to arrive. She says, from there, Cody decided to manage my move. Manage is the wrong word. He tried to control my move, to control me. She told Cody, I need the snowblower loaded up, and I'd like it to be in the back of the trailer so I can pack around it. What she wanted to add but didn't was, so I can pack the rest without you in my garage. She writes, Cody wanted to mastermind it. He believed the snowblower should go in last because of weight or something. But nothing about that made sense to me because the boxes weren't that heavy. So the snowblower should be packed first. Also, it was my trailer, my garage, and my snowblower. I asked for help loading it, and that's all. Knowing he didn't want to be there any longer than she wanted him there, she kept asking, "You're going to help me load all of it then?" She hoped he would agree to put the snowblower in first, but that didn't happen. Christine told Cody she could handle the boxes by herself, but not the snowblower, and told him she was in charge. He started moving things around and shouting and made fun of her, saying, "Look who's big and strong now." And she writes, "Right, I asked for your help to prove how big and strong I am." She was irritated and didn't want him acting that way in front of Truly. Finally, he gave in and loaded the snowblower in the trailer first, and it was a small victory for her. She says she and the sister wives had done plenty of things on their own, like moving furniture or loading U-Hauls, that they didn't need someone mansplaining how to do it. She was proud that she kept calm while telling him what she needed. Christine says since making the decision to leave Cody, the issues she took up before seemed less significant now, except when it came to the children. Truly took comfort in the fact that she would get to see Gwendolyn, Janelle, and Janelle's kids. Truly initially included her dad in that mix, but the way it worked out, Cody only saw her 5 times that year, including an extra trip for Christmas. Christine points out that everyone knows everyone else's schedules ahead of time because TLC sent the film schedule to the whole group. Christine writes, Truly has always had a strong voice, but that was rough. She struggled because she had only seen him a few times and she had never spent the night at Robin's house. She finally stayed over one night when McKelty stayed too, and that was fine. On the next visit, Cody and Robin put her in a room she could only get into from outside. That didn't seem safe, or like something you do to a little girl you love. Then they put her in Solomon's room, but it didn't feel homey. Solomon hadn't moved into his new room at Robin's house yet, so Robin and Cody had just set up the bed and there were no curtains or anything, so she didn't sleep well. She didn't feel welcome. Poor Truly. On one of their trips to Flagstaff, Christine asked Truly about her plans. Truly said, I don't think I'm going to see Dad. I think he only wants to spend time with his kids. Christine said, well, you're one of his kids, Truly. Truly said, it's just not like that. He's going to spend time with Ari or Saul. Truly was 12, and this devastated Christine. Christine writes, after a while, I stopped letting him know we were coming in because he never responded. Then I started leaving her at home. One day, Christine met up with Cody at a restaurant to discuss Christmas plans with Truly. The cameras filmed the lunch. Cody said, Gwendolyn's not going to be here for Christmas? I was sick during her birthday. I was laid up with COVID. Christine laughed and began to say, you were also out of it. She was... Cody interrupted her and said, was she thinking that was funny too? I was out of my mind, but when I talked about getting anxiety, Christine, and depression, Christine writes, right, Cody's COVID had caused great emotional distress. He had survived, but it was not in the past. She tried to apologize and said, I'm sorry to even laugh about it, but Gwendolyn was like... Cody interrupted again, saying, You're mean that way. It's okay. Christine tried to explain what was funny was Gwendolyn's reaction and that now that he had survived his near-death experience, it was okay to laugh. Cody said, I was in the fetal position on the floor sobbing. She figured it was best to just leave her Gwendolyn story for another day. Christine thought to herself, it's so nice to not be married to you. Cody kept talking about himself and Christine didn't care, so she just shut down and tuned him out. She thought, I don't need to be here. This is the dumbest thing ever. There's nothing I can say that is going to make this conversation better. Christine said to him, mean. She knew he never really knew her. When Christine asked Janelle how she and Cody were doing, all Janelle said was, oh, we're figuring things out. Christine writes, despite Cody's belief that we all spent our time bad-mouthing him, Janelle was about as loyal as a person could get. For her, it made sense to stay with him. She's pragmatic. Their money was all tied together. She still had faith in an eternal bond. What Christine didn't know at the time was Cody and Janelle had a bad fight about a year after Christine had left. The fight was about Cody's rules and lack of relationships with their sons. Okay, it's one of my favorite scenes. Cody is throwing a tantrum and Janelle's trying to talk to him, and then they both lose their patience. Cody gets up to leave in a huff, and Janelle tells him to stay so they could talk about it. And he storms out, and Janelle tells him, F you, just before he slams the door shut. Christine didn't know about it until long after it happened. That's how quiet Janelle is about their relationship. 6 months after the fight, Janelle and Christine were on a hike in Idaho when Janelle told her about it and how distant she and Cody had become. Christine said, I had no idea that conversation had taken place. Janelle said, We're over, Christine writes. She later told me she didn't feel like she needed to tell him it was over, but I wanted her to feel what I had felt, that sense of empowerment, that it was my decision for it to be over. But Janelle had always been empowered in a way that was different from how I felt. After I saw the episode with the fight, I better understood just how much she had said with those 2 words. It's been good to see her happy since then. I can't wait for her to tell her story. Christine says she learned a lot in that first year away from the family, and she spent a lot more time with the kids and grandkids, who now included Maddie's Josephine and Amelia, and McKelty's Ace and Archer. Christine no longer celebrated Shabbat because it didn't hold any personal or religious significance to her, but she did start celebrating Easter again. Rebirth, new life, spring. Chapter 37. One day, Christine's son-in-law, Tony, said to her, You're an attractive woman. You should be getting laid, McKelty said. Hey, that's my mom, he said. Right, but she's still an attractive woman. She should be getting laid, Christine writes. From being the most chaste of the chaste to, well, sort of agreeing with Tony. I mean, not in those words, but good Lord, I had been with a man who just wasn't into me for 27 years. I didn't even know what a real kiss felt like. Worse, I felt like a 15-year-old girl worried that she couldn't do it right. Kiss, I mean. In preparation to enter the dating world again, Christine asked Truly, Would it be okay if I dated? Truly said, I like us just how we are. That didn't go as planned. Eventually, Christine hired a matchmaker who gave her some pointers about discussing her past. Plague mom of 6 seeks understanding hot, bald dad who has tattoos and likes motorcycles. The men were vetted and background checked, but Christine was still struggling with the idea of anyone being attracted to her after what happened with Cody. She says, It's hard to date if you don't feel pretty or beautiful, certainly not sexy. On her first date, she had no idea what she was doing and told the guy everything about her past, and yeah, that went nowhere. The matchmaker told her, You don't have to tell him everything all at once. Christine said, I don't? Girl, no. When Christine started dating Cody, he had already known everything about her. He even knew everything about her parents and her grandparents. She says after being raised in a closed community, it was difficult not to disclose everything. Another thing she worried about was her dates recognizing who she was. In the end, matchmaking just didn't work out for her. Then one day she was listening to a podcast and an ad for a dating app came up, so she signed up. Although she was sure middle-aged bald men weren't part of the demographics who watched Sister Wives, she was still nervous she might get recognized. Christine wrote a bio and showed it to McKelty, as well as the photo she was going to use. McKelty said, no, the pictures were not sexy enough and the bio was all wrong. Christine says her apparel evolved over the years from garments to wearing capris, but she still tried to remain modest for her community. At home, she'd wear shorts and tank tops and was still working on her self-esteem. She thought one could either be comfy or look sexy, but not both. McKelty told her, You need to dress differently. You have a great body and you need to show it off. Before dates, Christine would show her daughters what she planned on wearing, and they'd say things like, That's not going to work, or You need to show more skin. Tony would press her about her dates. He'd say, Are you getting laid yet? We're not going to watch Truly anymore if you're not getting laid. She calls him a funny dude. Christine writes, As I scrolled one day through a sea of profile pics of men with fish, why do they think we want to see their fish? On boats or in oddly lit basement shots obviously taken with their computers, or by a fellow axe murderer, David hit me differently. She said his picture was as perfect as his profile. She sent him a message and learned later that he had to pay $60 to resubscribe just so he could read the message. He hadn't been active in 3 years. He was even on his way to Disneyland. For their first date, Christine got out of her comfort zone and wore leather pants with a blue off-the-shoulder blouse and high heels. She sent a picture of her outfit to McKelty, who said, Oh my God, yes, that's what you're wearing on your date. Christine remembers it was the first time she felt sexy. Their first date went well. All she writes about it is flirty, deep, silly. On their second date, she told him she had been a polygamist, and to her surprise, he said, Oh, I know all about polygamy. My sisters lived it. She said, You don't want to live it, right? He said, Oh God, no. She told him, Then we're fine. I have a sister wife, Janelle. She's going to come with me everywhere I go, but your relationship with her will be platonic, of course. He said, done. She told him about the show and how it affected her life. David said, Cody's a dumbass. Her jaw was on the floor. She said, you watched my show? He said, girl, I don't live under a rock. Yes, I've watched your show. David told her his favorite episode was the one where she got into it with Cody about the snowblower. It was at that point he realized that she had left Cody. Christine writes, he says he realized that day out of all the guys in the world, he might be the only one who could understand my experience because his sisters had lived polygamy and he paid attention. They talked to him about their heartache and he listened. I would be perfect for her, he told me later that he'd been thinking. Still, he didn't expect to actually meet me. David's sisters, who had lived polygamy, had fought constantly with their sister wives. So he tuned into the show to watch the drama. David told her, I tuned it out most of the time, to be honest with you, because you guys never fought. You were boring. Another episode he liked was the Janelle's FU one and also the knife in the kidneys episode. He said when Cody said that, he remembered thinking, you're really saying this on national television? And he loved that Christine said everything she needed with her eyes. She says he knew all of her past, her kids, the lows with Cody, and how the relationship ended. He had paid attention. He was perfect. One thing, though, she says she was ready for romance, the butterflies, the fairy tale. On their second date, they went to see the movie The Little Mermaid. When the song Kiss the Girl played, Christine prepared herself for David to kiss her because it was the perfect moment. He didn't kiss her. He didn't kiss her at all that night. He didn't even hold her hand, and she thought it was weird. Christine writes, a couple of days later, I had a terrible on-camera interview in my office for Sister Wives. Even as I was starting to date, I have to talk about my feelings about the past. I just wanted to move forward, but I kept getting dragged straight back to that last bedroom conversation with Cody. She texted David, today just sucked. At this point, they were texting each other all day. He wrote back, well, why don't you just come over and talk to me? She wondered if it was a little too soon to go to his house, but she shocked herself by considering it. David texted, yeah, just come over, Christine writes. I was dressed in my sweats because it was a set day and I needed every time my most comfortable clothes. My stomach was upset because I don't like talking about that stuff. It's yucky and stressful and it makes me feel angry. On the way to his house, she thought, what if I just tell him everything? What if I just told him how I feel? What if I tell him and he wants nothing to do with me? He hasn't even kissed me. What if he's not attracted to me? When she got to his house, she told him, I'm going to tell you how my day went and how I'm feeling. But before I tell you all this, are you going to put me in the friend zone? He said, wait, what? She said, are you going to friend zone me if I tell you everything and if I really open up to you? Because I come with a lot. He said, no. Christine didn't stop. Because you didn't kiss me in our date. He said, I know. I could tell you wanted to be kissed. She said, but it was kiss the girl. I don't know what your deal is. He told her, I wasn't raised that way. I am a gentleman, and I don't kiss women on the second date. It clicked in her head. David continued, I've lived my whole life being a gentleman. I'm just going to continue doing that. Christine said, okay, you'll have to show me you're attracted to me, because if you're not, and we're just going to be friends, then I need to know. He said, you are so damn sexy. Christine writes, my heart settled down and sped up at the same time. Was this what I wanted? I felt like all my nerve endings had lost their anchors. I told him all my stuff, all my horrible, rotten stuff. And then I got up to leave, go on, and he kissed me. He knocked my flippers straight out of the water. He even called her on her way home, and she was head over heels. Chapter 38. Christine and David talked about everything. She shared with him her insecurities about kissing and how she looked. He told her, I don't care about all of that. I just think you're a damn good kisser. She said, I think you are too. Christine was worried, though, that David may have just considered this a fling, so she asked all the questions she needed to know. Are we going to have sex? Do you find me attractive? Are we going to have an intimate marriage? Poor Christine, you could tell all the emotional damage that Cody had done to her still haunts her. Christine writes, what's the worst that could have happened? I would have been sad for a bit, and then I would have moved on. Okay, really sad, but not 3 decades worth of sad. We're all grown-ups. If it's not right, scram and ask. If he's relationship averse, don't you want to know early? David said to her, I have to be blunt. I'm not going to be like a Scottish romance novel. Christine says their lives were actually connected deeper than they knew. His parents knew her grandpa Rulon, and she said she and David both have memories of the colony in Mexico. He was definitely at the wedding she attended when she was 14, and her maternal aunt married David's best friend. Rulon actually delivered two of David's sisters and taught David's dad how to deliver babies, including how to unhook an umbilical cord around a baby's neck before it's born. And that's exactly what his dad did when David was born and had the umbilical cord around his neck. Christine writes, the security that comes with knowing that I'm his person and that he's going to come home every night because he wants to be around me has changed every aspect of my world. We have intimate moments all day long. Just goofing around is intimate. A shared joke, a shared moment. Hearing a song we both like on the radio is intimate. So many little conversations are intimate. It's just lovely. Lovely. She says he teases her too, though. Whenever they're watching something on TV, he'll make comments on people's outfits, and she realized something. She told him, oh my God, you were criticizing my outfits. He said, yeah, you dressed really weird. He teased her about her chaste wedding dress. That's sexy. No wonder Cody had a 1,000-yard stare. Christine says the kids loved David right away, but some of them did struggle with how soon she began dating after leaving Cody. They didn't know how long their parents were actually not together before the divorce. Isabel was concerned that David would take Cody's place as her father. Christine told her, Cody will always be your dad. David's just another person to love you. One day, a few months later, David told Christine, I think we should go jewelry shopping. She said, sure, I like jewelry. He said, well, ring shopping for you. She writes, right, ring. Oh. Before she met David, she had decided the next person she was with, they needed to live together before they got married. But with David, it wasn't just about testing the waters and cohabiting. She truly didn't want to be away from him, so living together worked out. Christine and David began looking for a place together, and they found a house that week. The night before the move, Christine talked to Truly, who told her she was nervous that the move would bring changes in their routine together. So here Christine jumps back to the first conversation Truly and David had with each other. I don't know why she inserts it here, so don't ask. Christine says during the first conversation, Truly told David, I was in the hospital and people always say, the way you healed is a miracle. David told her, oh my gosh, you must feel a lot of pressure from that. Truly looked at him and her face changed completely. She said, it's so stressful. Christine writes, they talked about the pressure Truly feels from living her entire life on the show and how unnerving it can be when someone recognizes me when we're out in public. David listened, and it was almost a mind meld. He could see beyond the girl in a beanie and baggy clothes while still being able to engage in preteen humor. She had blue hair at the time. David said, you're a smurf. She said back, you're bald. Christine says David had told her he'd be whatever her kids needed him to be. She says his kids are great and they get along great with her kids. McKelty and David's daughter call each other sister. When Peyton moved away, David's grandkids were heartbroken. Christine and Truly talked about what a good man David was, but Truly still seemed worried about the move, and it dawned on Christine why. She said to Truly, you know what, Truly? I've never lived with a man full-time before. And Truly said, nope, me neither. Christine said, I don't know what to do. I'm really nervous too. What are we supposed to do with him every single night? And Truly said, I don't know. It would be a transition, and the two made a pact that they would make sure to have one-on-one time together after the move. Christine says after they moved in together, it was different and something felt off. One morning as David was leaving for work, he asked her if she was okay, and she told him she was fine. He said, nope, and he shut the front door, put his stuff down, and sat next to her and asked what's wrong. Christine writes, he stayed and he talked with me. He reassured me that we would work on things as they come up, and I knew that we would keep talking until we found a solution. We decided we would do what was right for the two of us, no matter what. They talked for half an hour, and at the end, David asked her, are you okay? She said, yeah, I'm fine. And this time she meant it. He said, not much has changed. And she said, nope, not much has changed. Christine says she felt safe and loved, and that night, David came home to her. Chapter 39. One night, Christine and David were hanging out on the couch, and he jokingly told her he wanted to have a wedding themed after the rock band Kiss. But then he told her, I want you to know that if you agreed, we would drive to Vegas and I would marry you right now. Christine says she had no interest in getting married in Vegas. The day after she and Truly moved in with David, the three of them took off on a vacation to go off-roading for his friend Jason's birthday. They rode around Moab and then walked up onto a cliff to take in the view. David told her, you know, this is my favorite place in the world, and you're my favorite person, and I want to share this with you for the rest of our lives. Christine said, oh my gosh. And then she threw down whatever stuff she had in her arms. David got on one knee and said, will you marry me? Yes, of course. Yes, yes, yes. This was her yellow-toweled fairy tale. Christine writes, David was beginning to understand my world, and being a smart man, knew the show would want to feature his proposal. So they tricked me into filming it myself. Hey, one of his friends said, want me to get a picture of you two standing on the edge of a cliff? I handed him my phone. He hit record. Okay, so I just realized something. At the end of the last chapter, she says she and David had a talk because she said after moving in, things felt off. That conversation must have been after she said yes to his proposal, because his proposal took place very soon after she moved in. So on the day she said yes, things were still off at home. Interesting. Christine says she and David found their home in March 2023, and they moved in the following month. After the move, they went down to Flagstaff, where they rented an Airbnb with her kids, and then Janelle and her kids came over to visit and meet David. The kids began teasing him. He was wearing shorts and purple Uggs, though David calls them Cordovan, not purple. Hunter said, let's take a minute to talk about your Uggs. Eventually, the talk became serious, and David told them about himself. Christine writes, he'd been a single dad with 8 kids, working too many hours after he started his own business. His wife took her own life when their youngest was 6. She was addicted to drugs, and she left a lot of heartache behind. Isabel got frustrated because David didn't know how to play cards. And then we talked about what he had been doing. Oh, she said, he was being a dad. Christine says she vacillated on whether to include this next part in her book. Gwendolyn and her partner Ben had an engagement party, but Cody made Christine livid. David asked, Cody is going to be there, right? Cody had told Gwendolyn he wasn't going, and it made her cry. She said something like, but you're my dad. And Cody said, don't try to manipulate me with your tears. He eventually decided that he would go, and the producers found out. The producer told Christine, if he goes, we'll have to film it. She said, I don't want to film it. That's not fair. She felt not every event needed to be filmed. The producer said, the first time they meet, it needs to be filmed. He was referring to David and Cody meeting. She told him it was up to Gwendolyn, who said she was fine with it. At the party, McKelty, who loves David, said, Mom, come over here so David can meet Dad. Christine says they stood in, quote, an awkward horseshoe formation as the crew got into places so they could film the interaction. Cody said to David, I hear you're hanging out with my grandkids. McKelty said, oh no, he babysits them by himself sometimes. Christine writes, McKelty was trying to say, we trust David. He's a great guy. She just wants the family to be all together. Me being me, I put my head against David's shoulder, just gave him a little hug. When we talked about it later, David said, Cody went all red in the face when you put your head on my shoulder. So I saw this episode, and I looked at Cody's face, and it didn't seem like he was upset when she did that. It could have been the editing, though. Here's the part that got Christine really mad at Cody. She writes, but as Cody left the engagement party, he turned to Ben and said, welcome to the family. You've got to watch out for this one, meaning Gwendolyn. She's beautiful, but you have to watch out for Gwendolyn. Not thanks for a great time, not I think you're wonderful together, not I love you. It made Christine sad and furious that Cody couldn't see Gwendolyn for the incredible and dynamic person she is. Christine says she was initially worried about the trauma the kids might go through when she left Cody, because she remembered how she felt when her mom left her dad. But her kids love seeing her happy, and she's modeling what a good marriage looks like with David. She hoped that her kids could see that in healthy relationships, both people give. Sometimes one gives more than the other, but it all balances out in the end. One doesn't always have to make sacrifices. When Christine began planning her wedding to David, she told Aspen, I want all the bride stuff. I want it all. She says David was there every step of the way of planning, from picking colors to deciding on who would speak at the wedding. Their daughters took care of the bridal shower, the engagement party, and the bachelorette parties. The wedding was perfect. David and the girls checked in on Christine the whole day. Her parents were there, her siblings, the kids, and Janelle too. When David kissed Christine at the altar, he popped up his foot behind him. She says the day was filled with joy and laughter. Christine writes, "And I finally had what I wanted. I wanted just the man for me, and I wanted the family." Chapter 40. Christine writes, "Aspen has one of Garrison's cats, his shelter cats, abandoned cats. He had 3. Hunter has 1, and Logan and Michelle have 1. By the time Aspen got hers, the cat had already passed through so many hands that she was self-grooming to the point of baldness. Several months and $1,000 later, the cat is doing okay. She's a beautiful gray cat named Miss Abigail Buttons, and she sleeps with Aspen and Mitch every night." Christine says grief takes so many forms. In March of 2024, Garrison, Janelle, and Cody's son, took his own life, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to the family. Christine says she'll always remember the day she got the call. Hunter called her sobbing. She then called Peyton, but Hunter had already told him. She writes, "Our sons, his brothers." Peyton said, "I don't know what to do." Christine knew they all had to be together immediately and told him, "We're going to McKelty's." At McKelty's, everyone consoled each other, hugging and crying, and the little kids were confused. Avalon, McKelty's daughter, asked, "Why is everybody crying?" Christine pulled Gwendolyn out of class, and it took David an hour and a half to get to the house from where that day's job site was. They all made plans to go to Flagstaff. Christine says there were several services held for Garrison where the family gathered together under these tense circumstances, and that the burial service was beautiful. There are days where she is fine, but then something random will remind her of Garrison, and then she's in tears. Christine hadn't known anybody with food allergies until Garrison. Potatoes, pumpkin, ginger. And he'd say, "That hurts my tummy," or "That hurts my mouth." Every time she eats ginger, she thinks of him. And he was the messiest, cutest, and honoriest kid forever outside all day, every day. Garrison would spend time with Truly, too, and knew what she liked. She liked him being near her, and they'd watch cartoons together. He liked to pull pranks and scare Janelle even into adulthood, and it drove her nuts. The other day, Janelle was talking about his jump scares, and she began to cry. Christine says Maddie named her daughter in his honor, Amelia Estelle, because Estelle means star. She says Mitch is building a Viking ship for Garrison until Valhalla. So she doesn't say it here, but the Viking ship is for Garrison's urn. I remember that in the episode. Christine writes, "Garrison's was not a battlefield fight, but it was a struggle we see far too often. He did find satisfaction in being a soldier, which doesn't mean he loved every aspect of it. Some of his stories were tough, but he liked the people and he liked his leaders." She says after he died, 6 fellow soldiers went to Flagstaff to share stories about Garrison, and it was obvious they were hurting. They said he was always smiling and joking, masking his depression. Christine says with such a large family, they knew something heartbreaking might happen, and she always felt bearing a child would be the worst, but anything she thought she might have felt doesn't come close to reality. David hadn't known Garrison, but his passing hit him hard. It also took him back to the memories of his wife taking her own life, and it seemed that David knew what the family needed before they did. He said, "You're never going to be the same." Christine writes, "We all understood we might lose Garrison, but we thought he might overdo it one night, or he would crash his car. We don't talk about alcoholism in the young or about death by suicide. He was so young." She says there's no pattern of alcoholism in her family because Mormons typically don't drink at all. Her dad has never touched an alcoholic beverage in his life, although her mom has an occasional glass of wine. Christine writes, "It's shocking how much it changes people and their personalities until you barely recognize them. Depressed, then angry, then sick all the time." David suggested she go to Al-Anon so that she can learn what signs to watch for in case it happens to their other kids. There's no way to stop it from happening, but the awareness can open doors to conversations and safety. She says when she was addicted to Oxy, she stopped drinking because she was aware the two should never be mixed. Yet she wasn't aware enough that she had an addiction. After kicking Oxy, she began drinking again after really difficult interviews. Her drinking never got to the point where she couldn't stop at one, but she realized she was using it to cope. She still has a glass of wine every so often, but now it's in celebration of something or an event. Christine writes, after my experience with oxycodone, I understand addiction to anything becomes a trap. Janelle has spoken publicly about how substance abuse likely led to Garrison's death, and I feel like it's a slippery slope between that one beer and more, too much more. It's made her change her thinking on just assuming it's okay to bring a pack of beers to someone's home. Ask first if it's okay. And she thinks it's weird that society accepts the idea of alcohol being needed to relax and have a good conversation as the norm. But she'll always treasure the conversations and moments she had with Garrison. She says he was a photographer who took beautiful photos, and 2 weeks before he passed away, she had asked if she could have some of his art to frame and hang in her home in Moab. He told her, "It's not good enough to frame." She said, "Yes, it is." Christine writes, "The kids had one of his pieces framed for me for Christmas last year. A photo of the night sky. Sometimes it almost feels as if I can find him there. I would love to see him again." Prologue. Christine says when she's not writing her memoir, she doesn't want to talk about Cody anymore. She doesn't want to go to Flagstaff or sit on the set or do the end of season tell-alls and talk about painful events of the past. She says, "Writing this has been gut-wrenching, embarrassing. I'm telling people intimate things that I don't even want my kids to know. My friends are careful about what they say in front of me because they know some things will still hurt. I'm embarrassed I stayed. I'm embarrassed that I allowed him to treat me the way I did. I'm embarrassed that I didn't love myself more. But I understand that I stayed until I realized tomorrow wasn't going to get better." She believes her story has helped others. Women say to her in public and on social media, "Thank you for leaving him. Thank you for showing me that I could leave as well." It means a lot to Christine, and it's humbling. And as she's shared her story with more people, she understands that it is good to talk about past events that helped shape her to the person that she loves today. It helped her to find David. Christine told Janelle she was writing this book and told her there were no, what she calls, gotcha moments. And there was nothing for Janelle to worry about. And, quote, "If anything does come up in this book, you can fix it in your own." That's a sly way to try to get Janelle to write her own book. Christine says Janelle will always be her sister wife, and she's always the first person she talks to. She says she recently had a special moment with Mary, too. Mary, who was forever loyal, was leaving Cody, and Christine is proud of her. Christine says, "When she left, I was excited for her. She deserves someone who loves her, too." She says as far as the kids, there will still be hard days ahead in regards to the relationship with their dad, or lack thereof. Christine writes, "My girls and I bought Savannah's Clotter ring in Ireland last year. I had asked Cody if he planned to buy Truly one because he hadn't gotten her one when she turned 13, as he had done with our other girls. He said, 'It's not on my radar.' Apparently Savannah wasn't on his radar either, and that's why she and her girls got her the ring. Truly didn't want a ring and opted for Claudia earrings instead, which they got for her." Christine writes, "We spend time with all the kids, except for Robin's. Our kids miss them, but they don't have much to do with Robin either. Cody and Robin even severed ties with McKelty, who had once been so close to Robin. Perhaps that will change someday. Perhaps there will be a family reunion when we've all had time to recover." Christine says there was a period of 10 years where things were good and she and Cody got along and he was a great dad, and she still has hopes that he'll step up and remember he has amazing kids. As for now, he lives as a monogamist with his soulmate, and Christine has learned that nothing else beats that. She writes, "All in all, Cody wasn't controlling. We had freedom to do what we wanted. I lived the life I wanted, and I created a great life for my kids. I would do it all again. Thank goodness I don't have to." Christine continues to work on self-care. Before her wedding, she was 5 pounds away from her goal weight, 170 pounds. But after Garrison passed away, she gained 20 pounds. She thought, "He would not want this life for me." So now she sets aside an hour every day to work on herself. She works out for 20 minutes, but if she's trying to lose weight, it's at least an hour. She spends 20 minutes journaling or meditating, and the last 20 minutes in creative mode, baking, organizing, or working on a room. Christine writes, "I think Sister Wives has been a realistic representation of us. It has shown me at my best and my worst. You've seen me jealous, insecure, and sad, but also happy and excited, motivated, mediating." She says the crew became like family. They rode in the car with her on the way home after giving birth to Truly. And the family has watched the crew grow. from young adults to getting married and becoming parents themselves. She says her kids, for the most part, are done with the show, though. Aspen told her, "You know what? I think I've lived your life long enough. I want to live my own life now." And Christine totally understands. Truly felt like she never had a choice of being on a reality show, having been born into it. So Christine leaves it up to her if she wants to be part of the filming. Truly is still in the background of episodes, but she is no longer on the set. Christine is referring to the couch on the set where they have to answer questions from the director. Truly was on the set one time after her parents split, and Christine said never again. Christine says she was surprised to learn there would be another season after, because what else was there to film? She would have been fine moving on and living her life with her husband. But she thinks maybe the starting over is the story, that hopeful bit. She and Janelle still get together, and now Janelle has her flower farm. Christine writes, "I have loved doing the show. I loved it being a part of our life. I love all the opportunities we've had. But most of all, I love the change that has come for me as a person. I love who I am today. That came from the show and living polygamy and all the people I've met along the way." People have told Christine, "I'm waiting for my David." And it brings tears to her eyes thinking of when the day they do find him. She says, "So does thinking about the day you'll find you." That's the end of the book. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. It was insightful on how they lived. Again, I'm not a polygamist, but I love learning about stuff like this. So again, thanks for watching and the comments, and I'll see you on my next book review.